Joining me is Senator Lee Bright from Spartanburg. Hey, Senator Bright.
How are you doing?
Good. Okay, you have filed an interesting bill that was getting causing some swirl right before the Christmas break. Tell me how this would work. It's called the Firearms Freedom Act, and it would, I guess, govern firearm production here in South Carolina?
Yes, it's similar to the Montana bill that passed, and of course, it's tied up in the courts right now. But basically, if the gun's made here and used here, then obviously the Commerce Clause would not apply, and that's what the federal government uses to advance its tyranny, is the Commerce Clause in a lot of cases.
Right. So what you're saying is, and let me see if I understand this, because that's why I called you, because I didn't quite understand it from the article. If the federal government were to ban or outlaw guns, you're saying that constitutionally we should still have the right to manufacture our own here in South Carolina and only sell them within state borders.
Right.
Okay. All right, and that's essentially what we're doing with the light bulbs, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the same premise. You know, it's Washington has basically declared war on the Bill of Rights, mainly, and you know we've got to try to protect them as the states. It's our duty and obligation. So,
now, you mentioned this has been passed in another state. I forget which one you said.
Well, it's 8 other states. Montana's
okay.
First. Has
that been upheld all the way to the Supreme Court? I'm curious because I would imagine it would be challenged. This idea that
it has been challenged, and it's on appeal now. Montana's appealing. The federal courts tend to go against, you know, any kind of. It's kind of. I did an interview up here in Spartanburg, and we were discussing the supremacy clause, and you know, I think that's been carried to the extreme as well, because if you believe the argument, then basically the federal government has the power to dissolve the states, because if Congress passes a law that the states are no longer needed, and the Supreme Court upholds that law, then you don't have states anymore. And people say, oh, that'll never happen, but I think it could happen. I mean, you've got Kagan, who told the Mint that she believed precedent from the constitutional rulings outweighed the Constitution itself.
And Elena Kagan is a Supreme Court justice.
Right. And that's why the Mint voted against her. And then you got Ginsburg running around the world talking about how we need to look more to world courts. I mean, you've got dereliction of duty, you know, from her, basically on her comments made around the world. So, you know, it's frightening. And of course, you know, Obama. I mean, these folks have no regard for the Constitution. I was listening to the education secretary that you were playing earlier about children's safety and freedom. And if we want to protect our children, protect our safety, and protect our freedom, we need to protect the Constitution. And, you know, it's a hypocrisy when they talk about these things, when they're assaulting these things. I mean, they're destroying our children's future and talking about protecting our children. And here's Obama, who is the only member of the Illinois legislature that believes in partial birth abortion, talking about protecting our children. I mean, how stupid does this guy think we are?
I see this to me is part, and I know you disagree with me a little bit in earlier, but to me this is part of a direction. You know, people were talking earlier in the year about secession, you know, which was during the Civil War the attempt of a state or a group of states to leave the Union, and I have said that when that happens in the future, it will actually be states not trying to leave the Union but rebelling against the federal government. We might not even realize that's what's happening when it happens. In other words, the government, federal government saying you will do this, and it might be funding Medicaid, it might be, you know, banning guns, and the state saying no, we will not. And at some point, it's going to have to come down to the government. You know, even if it goes all the way up to the Supreme Court, and they say yes, you will. You know, at some point, you got to go. You and what army are going to make me? And that, I think, is going to come in the next decade. I think it's going to come not because the states are secessionist and they're crazy or whatever, but because literally we'll be driven to the point of virtual bankruptcy by the federal government and its mandates, and some state is simply going to say no. And I think when that happens, the game is up, because the federal government's going to be there. We're going to be looking at the federal government. Okay, come enforce your gun laws down here. You and what army? And they don't have one. I think that's what it'll come to.
Well, I think that I've got a lot of faith in the American people. This last election, I think, is something that I hate that we're going to have to learn the lesson we're going to have to learn, but I'm hoping the pendulum's going to swing back. But it comes to the point to where you can't sacrifice liberty for security, and the bottom line is what we want to do is use the 10th Amendment to protect the Second Amendment. Mm-hmm. And we want to use the 9th and 10th Amendments to protect the Bill of Rights. Because otherwise, we are going to get to the point where we're going to have to use the Second Amendment to protect the 10th. And that's the point we don't want to come to. So, I think that basically, you come to a point to where you say, I've sworn an oath to the Constitution. And you look at our founders and you look at their speeches, you look at Patrick Henry and the words they used. And basically, we have to, where it talks about the fact that, the slavery and the point to where I think we're coming as a people. When the government's taking them out of control as over our lives, we're no longer free men. And, peace, to maintain peace at the point of slavery is unacceptable. So, I'm not willing to sacrifice my liberty to preserve my life. And I think when we speak in those type terms, it may sound radical, but unless we have those type beliefs, our freedoms will be taken from us because, freedom's never free.
Well, in Senator Lee Bright, as the person who filed the Firearms Freedom Act, I don't think you do sound radical. We I just read an article about ammunition is now on back order with manufacturers for 6 months. We've got the American people at an all-time high after the Newtown shooting, 73% saying no to a ban on guns. That's historical all-time high in Gallup's polling. We even have 51% in the Gallup poll saying no ban on assault weapons. That's the highest they've ever registered on that as well. And so I think a lot of the American public is with you on the Firearms Freedom Act. And for people just tuning in, this is what this would do. This is Senate Bill 85. And what it would say was, basically, even if the federal government were to ban some or all guns or ammo, that any that is manufactured right here in South Carolina and sold only in South Carolina would still be legal, and they wouldn't be subject to federal law or federal regulation. What are the odds you think of getting this passed? Derek, got any traction up there at the legislature?
I've had a lot of folks in the media. As a matter of fact, I was doing an interview in the Upstate earlier this morning. It's getting a lot of media attention. I think that, if you watch the legislature, it's driven a lot of, by the people. And if enough people make enough phone calls and encourage their legislators to be co-sponsors, and really it almost goes beyond encouragement and gets to the point of demand. When you start demanding your legislators to act, they'll act. But it just matters, how many emails are sent, how many phone calls are made. Once you get the critical mass of co-sponsors, then you get to the point where it has to come to the floor. And I think it would be a great debate to have on the floor of the Senate and the House. And I think it is something that we could pass. 8 other states have done it. It's being reviewed in a lot of other states currently. And, it's very encouraging. You look at the number of states, and I sponsored a nullification bill as well on Obamacare. Because you look at the number of states that have come out against what the federal government's trying to do. We're not alone.
No, and I think there's going to be a big battle over that over the next decade, especially the fact that the Medicaid, the expansion under the federal government, according to the Wall Street Journal, will cost South Carolina taxpayers an additional $1 billion over the next decade to pay for that. It's crazy. We just can't pay it.
And the Democrats, and of course, the Republicans have got to be a big government group too. Although I'm so proud of our congressman last night.
Yeah.
If you look, all the Republicans voted right. Now, we had a problem on the U.S. Senate side, but our senator, current senator, has followed probably more closely in Fritz Holland's footsteps than in the Republican Party's footsteps. So I wasn't too surprised at the vote, but I am proud of our congressman toting the line. So, we've got some conservatives up there. I'm just hoping 2 years from now, that's what's going to be crucial. And, it's not even 2 years. You're talking a year and a half from now I'm hoping that a lot of these folks in Congress and the U.S. Senate get primaried out. I mean, we got 5 strong conservatives in the U.S. Senate, and the vote it blew my mind that this happened the way it happened, and the fact that Obama has Obama should probably issue dunce hats for the House members and the senators that voted his way and put their names on them, so that way he can just call them to the front of the class when he chooses. But the way he's been able to just basically run over and manipulate these folks and allow them, I mean, he has controlled the debate at every turn.
Yeah, he is a gifted politician, and now he aims, Lee Bright, to control the debate over firearms. That's his big goal for January. So going to be interesting to see your bill, Senate Bill 85, debated. And again, this is basically the light bulb bill. This whole idea, remember, the light bulbs are banned nationally, but we can manufacture them here in South Carolina. We just can't sell them across state lines. It'd be the same with firearms, as long as we manufacture them here and we don't sell them across state lines. Federal government, this bill holds, would keep them legal, because the federal government could not use the Commerce Clause to regulate them. Thank you so much for joining us today, Senator Lee Bright from Spartanburg. I know we'll have you back again to follow the progress of this bill.